conversation where the two of them still were feeling good about one another and they could hug it out, that would be by definition a success.
And I love it when he
Right.
was like really offended about not being trusted by Kanye. But
Yeah.
Sam, all of this is, I take all of this, but the criticism that people will come back at me on Twitter with about you and me is, were you holding yourself to the same standard of calling out Charles Murray about any potential eugenic related ideas as you're insisting that Lex do with Kanye? Because that was a chummy interview too.
I have no, well, no, but I have. So if you're going to say that Charles has since done something now, some years after I spoke with him, that is objectionable, well, I would need a time machine to have
wow.
priced that into
Wouldn't
my
the claim
conversation.
be that he's always dabbled in a kind of, an unseemly interest in the differences between races?
That was the one. That was the one point I raised with him where I said publicly I felt like I didn't get a satisfying answer. Right? Like, why spend time on any of this stuff?
Right.
But if you remember, the reason why I had him on the show was not because I had this ambient interest in IQ and much less racial differences in IQ. It was that he had just been spectacularly deplatformed at Middlebury, right? Violently so, and that was at the moment where this was becoming kind of an epidemic, and this was just the most salient instance of that epidemic. And so I decided I needed to talk to him, and then I realized, well, I had believed everything that had been said and written about the bell curve without ever having read it, and I read it and realized, okay, the most objectionable paragraph in this book isn't even objectionable, right? So what the hell's going on here? Let me talk to the guy. And and so that, I had the conversation I had, and it was not without reputational cost, I can assure you. But yeah, I don't see what I would have. I mean, I still think the facts are as they were when we had that conversation. The stuff that people pretend is controversial isn't in fact controversial. The differences in IQ across various groups. And the explanation, there is no explanation for that anyone has offered. And Charles certainly doesn't offer one. At least he didn't then. And it's, my basic position on all of that is that it's not worth paying attention to. I mean,
so to avoid the charge of hypocrisy, what's the general rule here? The general rule is, because obviously Charles Murray did not say we need to go DEFCON 3 on black people, right? So there's obviously a difference of degree, and then there's a difference of conduct during the interview itself, although I think you still cop criticism for your interviewing style and, why weren't you more Ezra Klein on Charles Murray or something? Why didn't you get stuck into him about the social or political or cultural context in which he's making these arguments, which are obviously going to have inflammatory racial overtones or whatever that case may be? So is the general rule you can have the warm softball interview, but only with people who are intellectually serious, and you don't is that the rule?
Well, no, it's unfair to put Charles in the same sentence with Kanye because you have to understand with Charles Murray, when you talk to notable scientists anywhere in this field or adjacent to it, no one had any bad things to say about Charles Murray, right? I mean, he truly was a true case of a canary in a coal mine where he had been basically a human sacrifice to it wasn't wokeness at that point. I guess it was political correctness. He touched a topic that was so taboo that his reputation was annihilated on the spot. Now you might wonder why he has kept touching that topic or similar topics, and that's something that I asked him. I don't quite understand it. I mean, I guess once something like that has blown up on you, I guess there is maybe a perverse interest in just continuing to deal with it.
I mean, maybe there's also a Brett Weinstein analogy to be drawn here, in the sense that, you open the box, you start looking inside, you rummage around, things look interesting, they lead you to other things, you get a lot of pushback from other people about even opening the box, you get your hackles up and you say, fuck you, I'm allowed to look in this box. Who are you to tell me not to?
Yeah, I mean, but the difference with Murray is that I'm unaware of legitimate criticism of the kind of the general shape of what he's produced. Right? It's just like it's his points are being treated as utterly fringe. I mean, just beyond the pale. And the truth is, they're absolutely mainstream when you're talking about what people agree on in the field. It's like it's everything is upside down for political reasons, and because people are drawing the wrong political and moral lesson from his findings, and it's a lesson he doesn't draw. Right? I mean, I never got anything from him that suggested a a racist political agenda. I didn't get anything like that, and if I had, I would have felt very differently about speaking with him.
That's true. I mean, the critic would say you're being overly, you're being a bit Asperger's-y or something to assume that people just say openly the things that are actually going on. And so there's a little, like, this comes back to, how much do you want to read people's minds, so to speak? And maybe the lesson of the intellectual dark web and the trajectories of all of these people who you were friends with was maybe you do need more mind reading.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I can't do
Anyway,
anything
let's
but
get off.
observe
Let's get
the
off
fact
it.
that there are a few people who I've been surprised by, but it's